Did the Baker Trail 50-mile ultra central section this past weekend. When I say central, they break this race up, well, this trail up into three different sections: north, south, central. This was the central section year. They do it on a rolling basis. Um, they have a really cool concept where if you do all three races, um, whether it's back to back to back or, periodically, you get this rolling pin that attaches all the three medals to it. So it's a pretty cool concept to get people to do all three races when they can. Um, my plan was to do all three races back to back to back, um, consecutive years to get the rolling pin. So it was going to be a 3-year commitment, but after this race, honestly, I don't know if I'm going to go back for the other two. I'm not really a big fan of the trail. Um, it just doesn't appeal to me unless the other two sections are a lot better and a lot more off the road. Um, Not sure what my placement is overall. The results aren't up yet. I lost track later in the day where I was and where I stood. I did finish in like 10 hours and 5 minutes. So about an hour, 40 minutes off the pace that I wanted to be on. But I did sort of give up later in the race, which I'll get to. I did set up a Pace Pro for 8 hours, 15 minutes going in. I figured that would get me top three, top four easily. Um, with looking at the results from previous years and scouting the competition a little bit beforehand. And I wanted to stay in that top four because they do top three overall, get like an extra award and a master's. So as long as I was in that top four, I would have either got a master's or a top three extra award. Well, the catch was the other guys in my competition um, were all 40 plus, so we were all going to be vying for that um, first overall slash masters because they do first overall. Then if you're 40, you get the masters first, and then it trickles down to second and third. Um, so anyway, enough of that. So that was sort of my goal for the day is to stay top four, so I could at least um, get one of those extra awards. And that's why I was setting at 8:15 uh, Pace Pro, I guess. I'll get the junk out of the way first. I wore my Under Armour ISO Chill compression shorts. I had my yellow like mesh top on. I took my MP3 player, my mission hat, my Hoka ice bandana. I had my calf sleeves on. I wore my Oil Creek socks. Um, my Ultra Spire Speedgo 3.0 waist belt with two 20-ounce bottles in it. One I kept water all day, then the other was electrolytes. I started off with noon caffeinated and it switched to Gatorade that they had um, probably midway through the race. Um, I did stash probably 5 or 6 um, wet wipes in the pack. I had a honey stinger and a gel in there as well, and then I had a bunch of noon tablets to refill my bottles. I even took my prime smelling salts just in case I needed to wake up a little bit. Um, and then I took these Saucony Cohesion TR15 shoes, which I'll get this out of the way. It'll help explain some things going on as I talk about the race. I got these shoes on Wednesday of the week because I found out the trail, well, this race in general was going to be a lot of gravel type road and then pavement. And then there was some trail mixed in. We'll say like 8 miles of trail, like trail, maybe 10 total if you count some of the farms that we go around. So I needed a shoe that wasn't going to beat my feet up theoretically going in, where like a road shoe was just going to get tore up from the gravel and the trail sections. But I didn't want a trail shoe either, where it's going to beat my feet up from being on that pavement and gravel road as well. So I was kind of torn what shoes to wear. So I had to buy these new ones, these TR Cohesion 15s from Saucony. They looked pretty good, and they're basically like a hybrid road slash trail shoe. They look just like the normal Cohesion uh, like road shoes, but they got a little bit thicker tread. To me, that's the only real difference on them. So I thought they looked good. I used them in training. I ran like 10 miles in them in training. They felt pretty good. I actually mixed it up. Um, I went out like by my town. I went around Wildcat and the game lands and stuff came back. So I did pavement to gravel to dirt to back to pavement the one day for like a 7 mile run. And then another day I did like a 3 mile run in them. So like 10 total. And they felt pretty good and comfortable at the time. Um, so I thought those were pretty good shoes to take. So that's what I wore during the race. Um, so to get that junk out of the way before I get into the actual recap. So the finish line is at this Smicksburg farm, and that's where you have to actually drive to in the morning and get bus to the start in Somerville because there's really no parking there, at least enough parking for all the participants. It's on like the Red Bank Valley Trails where we start for like 3 miles, spaces people out pretty good. Um, I think it was about a 40, 50 minute drive to Somerville. I could be mistaken. Um, because I was trying to rest my eyes a little bit, trying to get some extra sleep in and just not really activate my body um, before the race on that bus ride. And it is on like back roads, so it did take a little bit longer than maybe getting on one of the main highways because you really in that area there really is no highway type roads, so you are going on more like back roads than anything. um, because I only did get probably 3 hours of sleep before the race. I actually went to a high school football game to watch. And I was thinking to myself the whole time, you should be in bed. Why aren't you in bed? Because I'm watching my alarm clock, start down from like 9 to 7 hours to 6 as I'm at the game. Just thinking how dumb it is to be there, not trying to go to sleep. Even when I got home, I didn't fall asleep right away. So lost a lot of sleep and I tossed and turned all night. Should have got like 5, but ended up getting like 3. So that's why I was using the bus ride, just to keep myself in check a little bit more. Um, it did seem to work. On the way there, because it's only an hour away, this Mixburg Farm's only an hour away from me. I did eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, um, drank some Gatorade on the way. Um, and then right as I got on the bus, I ate some crackers. And then when we got to Somerville, I downed a granola bar and a Celsius with 200 milligrams of caffeine in it. Like wake me up and get some last minute calories in before the race started. Um, Overall, I think that 8:15 time frame was going to give me like a 9:40-ish range pace to maintain all day, which really isn't that bad with all the road. I would say it's 80%, 85% road slash gravel road. So I figured, hell, that's pretty doable for me. Even though I am a little bit under trained, I've only had two 20-mile days since Laurel. Um, so I'm a little bit behind on training, but I figured I could just uh, pound it out a little bit and just go a little bit harder early on in the day. So on top of my Pro plan, I was planning to go a little bit harder to mile 22, aid station 4, the Mahoning Dam. Um, I was hoping to get there before 10 a.m. when the sun started to really come out and really start to bake us. And I figured from the dam, there's like 10 miles that we were going to be in the woods, 8, 10 miles in the woods. It was going to give a nice shaded area theoretically. And then all I had to worry about was, you know, 17, 18 miles of being exposed on the road later in the day, which hopefully would only take me at most 3 hours. So I figured I could suffer through that uh, as long as I got through the trail section healthy and not struggling too bad. Um, so I got to when we got to Somerville, and after I, got off the bus, ate, went to the bathroom, I did douse myself with some water uh, just to get my body moist right away. And so it start to cool already in the morning. It was only maybe 50 degrees, so not necessarily the smartest thing to do early in the morning because when we got to the start line, when we walked over there, there was a couple minute delay. Um, And then they did the national anthem, and while they're doing the national anthem, I'm actually there like shivering and shaking, needed to get moving just from making myself wet and then standing there in that chilly morning. So not that I didn't think that through, but I needed to make myself cooler in the mornings so I could survive later in the race and not start out dry and get hot and use my sweat to get me moist. I wanted to actually be moist early on in the race. You do have a key fob looking thing that you have to wear all day long because they do scan you at 4 out of the 9 aid stations. It might be 5 out of the 9. I forget. I know it's every other aid station they have a scanner. Um, and I didn't have no issues with this getting scanned all day long. All the volunteers were ready as you came into the aid station to get your number or scan you, depending on which that type that aid station was actually going to do. My mouth's a little dry. Sorry about this. Um, so anyway, we start in Somerville on the Red Bank Valley Trail for 3-ish miles. And it's all rail trail if you don't know. Um, Two people took off right away. One of them was a woman who was in the relay, really fast marathoner. Um, and then this other guy that we met up with, Jeremy, he took off with her to start. And then it was me, Lucas Holcomb, and Jason Tanner. We just basically ran that 3-mile section together, bullshitting, having fun, um, doing like 7:30s, between 7 and 8, those first uh, couple miles, just having a good time, relaxing. Like we were way ahead of the field. Like you look back, there'd be nobody near us. And we were just running so comfortably, bullshitting, having a good time. It was pretty fun. Um, then we hit some farmer field, uh, in and out, and then the top two at the time, like overall, not just placement, went off trail. Um, and that's when like me and Lucas like took over to the first aid station. We jumped out. Jason dropped back a little bit. Um, and then we were just like constantly watching our watches. Me and Lucas had our maps on our watches, and a few times we almost went the wrong way. Um, the course, you're gonna hear me say this a few times, is not marked very well. Um, and you really, honestly, you have to go slow to not miss some turns. Um, because there just isn't enough markings where you can't just not casually pay attention, whether in the woods or on the road. Road's a little bit more different, but whatever. Um, so we would, um, at least early on, the first like 15 miles or whatever, we would power walk the little bit of hills, just to save our legs for later in the day because we knew the heat was coming. It was probably 85, 86 degrees, if not more, later in the day. I know I heard at the one aid station they said it was 86. So, you fluctuate that a little bit, couple degrees here or there, up and down. And then when you're baking in the asphalt and on the gravel and stuff, it definitely becomes like 20 degrees warmer just because at least 20 degrees warmer, just from the sun hitting the asphalt and it radiating back up at you makes you a lot hotter. Um, but so it was like me, Lucas, and this Jeremy till mile 15, between aid station 1 and aid station 3, which was mile 16. We were pretty much running together, just bullshitting, having fun, just running comfortably. You could tell we were all running comfortably. We weren't breathing heavy. Um, we weren't really stressing at all. At least not that I noticed. Not nothing really too much to talk about in between. Because this was like we'd pop in and out a little bit on some like trail sections in those first 16 miles. Um, but for the most part, it was road or gravel, so we were running pretty comfortably in a fast pace. I know I was just banking time on my Pace Pro. Like every mile I was hitting at least like a minute off my pace in the plus. So I had like time in the bank. So I was adding time, I guess. Um, but I was a little bit gassy all morning. I was farting up a storm. I don't know if they noticed or not, but I was really getting bad. I think it was from that Celsius that I drank before the race. Caffeine just makes me a little bit gassy. Um, and I knew I was going to bonk at some point, probably in the 20, 25 mile range, just because I haven't really trained for that distance. Even though I'm running comfortably for a race setting, I figured it was going to be a little bit more um, under that 20-mile range. And I noticed my heart rate was up a little bit, like in the 160s. So I figured I'd be able to tell once it dropped down a little bit that the caffeine wore off. And that was about mile 14. I even said to them, I was like, yeah, I'm going to bonk here in a little bit because the caffeine's starting to wear off. I noticed my heart rate drop down 10 beats now. Um, but I was hoping to make it to like the 22. Um, but anyway, around mile 15, I knew that aid station 16 had a porta john, or at least listed one. So I was like, hey guys, I'm going to go ahead a little bit. Um, I got to go to the bathroom, whatever. I might have got 30 seconds on them by the time they came in, aid station 16. And then Jason passed back up. Um, so I dropped from, well, I came in there first just because I went ahead. It would have been three of us together at aid station 16, but then I ended up being fourth there. Got hydrated, went to the bathroom, and I noticed my foot, I think around mile 13-ish as well. As a side note, on my right foot, there was a little bit of a hot spot in the middle of the two balls of my foot on the right hand side. Um, I just attributed that to my shoelaces not being tight enough since they were newer shoes. So right after aid station 16, we hit some trail. Um, I tried to catch up with them for about 30 seconds to a minute, see if I could catch back up to them. I didn't see them real quick. So I stepped off, put my foot on a rock, retied both my shoes. Um, Even though the left foot wasn't really hurting at that time, figured tighten them up now, so I didn't have to stop later in the race. And I was hoping the right foot would feel better just to be a little bit more tightened. It didn't. It just got worse from there the rest of the day. As the day went on, it just sucked. My feet really weren't wet per se. My toes were a little bit because we did run through some of that, like a taller grass. Um, when we did run around some of those like farm areas and trail sections earlier on, and all day long, when you did hit some of these like farm areas or private property areas that the trail actually goes through, they weren't really maintained well. So it's not like mowed grass. You could tell it was like recently cut, but you could tell it was that grass. It was like 2, 3 feet high that got mowed down. So it's now what I call jaggy and stiff from being cut. It's not really that wavy grass. So you're running through that when you're in those sections, which sucked. I guess you'll have that, but it is kind of aggravating to run through that type of thing because it does slow you down, and it does poke you a little bit. Um, and going around these like farmers' fields in different areas, it's hard to pick up the yellow blaze that we're supposed to follow all day long because you got tree branches in the way, and the yellow blaze doesn't really stand out. It's getting kind of old, and they're not really that frequent enough um, for you to just like casually pay attention to when you're going around them. And again, there is not enough of them to actually reassure you that you're going the right way. Um, because when you are going around these private property areas and other places along the course in general, you could have two or three different intersections or cross sections um, from the way you're supposed to go, left, right, center, whatever, um, or like directly behind you, and there's no real indication which way you're supposed to go. Now, sometimes there is that double blaze, um, where like the top will be more to the left or more to the right, and that's where you're supposed to go. But a lot of times it's just like a single blaze, so it's not really an indication of which trail to take, even though it should just be straight. But the straight, like that single blaze, doesn't necessarily mean you're going straight. You still have to look to your left or right because there is times where you do go to the left or go to the right, and it's just that single blaze where you should be technically going ahead, even at an intersection. Um, if you do get to see a blaze, and I'm going to bitch about that a lot more as things go on. Um, so you do have to really pay attention. If you didn't have a GPX file on your watch, I don't see how if you don't know the trail, you're not getting lost. You're going to get lost multiple times during this central section. Um, and I got lost a couple times, even with having the GPX map on my wrist and looking at it like all the time, um, just missing things. Anyway, so at mile 16, the three of us were basically broke up and spaced out from there. I just kept running. I caught Jeremy before Mahoning Dam, I'd say around mile 20. Um, I saw him. There was like a farm that had some food out for us, like some grapes and like Gatorade and stuff. I saw them. Um, Wherever that farm was, that's when I saw him coming back into view in front of me. I passed him shortly after. I started actually listening to music at that point as well. Um, but that was all on like gravel road to the Mahoning Dam area. And at the Mahoning Dam area, like I could feel my foot by then getting really hot. So I wanted to take my shoe off real quick and my sock and look and make sure it wasn't a blister. Because if it was a blister, I was gonna pop it right there. Um, but it was just like a really hot spot, like in between the balls of my feet. Um, and the one volunteer there, she's like, "Do you have any other socks?" I'm like, "No, I should be good." Not knowing what was really coming. Um, I just figured my feet were gonna sweat no matter what all day long running, being a hot day as well. So dry socks weren't really gonna help. And I never had issues before um, with not changing socks out um, during a race. Even though I have changed socks out at like Laurel, other races like World's End, um, I actually never changed socks, even going through water. So I just thought it wasn't a big deal. Um, Up to that point, I really wasn't eating much of anything. The first three aid stations just grabbed like a piece of watermelon or two and maybe one little slice of a potato. Um, I will say I was behind on nutrition all day long. Um, and that was one of the sticking points that I think really hurt me. I might have had 1,500 calories of food all day long. And I might have been eating like watermelon or had some cantaloupe at some point, maybe a couple slices of um, pickles, but that's really nothing calorie wise. That might have accounted for maybe 200. Um, had like two rice cakes um, at aid station 8. And I had a little, those little, they slice up those small potatoes like slices, like so small, like it's a bite-sized potato. Might have had like 6 of those during the race. And then at Mahoning Dam, I had one pancake that they had there. I took and ate on the trail section. And let's see what else. I think like 5 gels throughout the race, which I never eat gels um, during a race because they usually just make me shit. Um, so definitely didn't have enough calories on me. Nothing. They had tons of food at the aid station and food that I would normally eat during a race and not have any issue. I just would look. I looked at it. I'm like, that just is not appealing to me today, and just something I just felt like my body was just not going to handle, and just I just wasn't hungry in general, and I don't know what was up with that. I just really was trying to force myself to even get those couple bites like potatoes or watermelon down. Um, it just really wasn't working. So the hydration was key, and I still wasn't even drinking all that much in between aid stations. The aid stations are only 4 to 6 miles apart. Um, but I was still only drinking maybe half a 20-ounce bottle of liquid in between. I don't know if I just wasn't absorbing it all or what was going on, but my nutrition was definitely off. Um, I don't know if it had anything to do with my feet getting worse or what, but it just one of those weird things that I never experienced really before in a race. So I didn't know what to really do. But Mahoning Dam was where I actually ate the most food, a couple little potatoes, the pancake, and a couple pieces of watermelon. That was like my buffet for the day for nutrition. Other than that, it was just again later on, it was just those couple gels, um, and maybe a couple pieces of cantaloupe. Um, and I'm surprised I just didn't hit a wall or pass out just from not eating. Anyway, so Mahoning Dam is where the trail section starts. The real trail section starts. It's the most technical, like 6 miles of the race. Um, and it definitely is a little bit technical. You're trying to get momentum starting to go. Then you hit like some rocky sections. So you have to like slow down your momentum or stop. And then there was a ton of trees. There probably had to be 20, 30 trees down in this section, half of which were these big ass trees. I would say at least 10 big ass trees with like branches still on the middle of the trail, like down on the middle of the trail where you actually couldn't jump over them or go around. You actually had to go 5, 10 feet, a good 5, 10 feet up or down the trail to get around them enough where you could actually get over the log, which also made it hard to see where you're supposed to go during the trail. And then in this section, it started at, we'll say maybe like 100 yards of like dirt rail trail type deal before it hit the technical section. But once you hit the technical section, you really had to pay attention to the markings on the trees when you could find them because there was like sharp turns and quick turns. You'd go down, up within like 15, 20 feet. It wasn't really a straight path or any real long periods of straightness. Um, I might be a little bit critical in some of these things, but I just want to get everything out there and let everybody know how my race actually went. But like this technical section really did start to piss me off a little bit just with all the trees and like the debris down and how it wasn't actually taken care of. Um, there were some like sections that you're running through like tall grass where there might have been a trail straight ahead or to your left, but you actually had to go to the right through the grass. So it just wasn't really a maintained section at all or a worn section where you could easily tell where you're supposed to go, like other trail races. Um, Again, they didn't use flagging at all. It was all going by the yellow Baker Trail blazes. Um, so it was just a really pain in the ass, but I did slow down in that section because I was ahead of my pace at the time. And I was just trying to get some of that calories in and not bounce my stomach around too much and burn up more calories in this section. And there was some water on the trail in this section, so I did splash myself like every time. I did get passed by two or three people by then. So coming into the Mahoning Dam, I was fifth person through, fourth male, and there was like one relay in front of me at the time. So I wasn't really worried about the relay. It was just us four guys um, at the Mahoning Dam. Um, and I still felt good at the time. Um, Still doing my thing. Felt like I could maintain it for most of the day. Um, yeah. So I felt comfortable at least at that point, with how I was doing and what I was going to be able to do the rest of the race. Even though this section did beat up my feet a little bit, and I was getting my feet wet, might have been my downfall, dipping myself or dipping my hat into some of the like the little creeks and waterfall areas, trying to keep myself moist and wet. But I don't know. I think it was more the shoes that really hurt me than anything. Um, but as I was dipping myself in, or my hat in the one section, another relay woman came up past me. Um, I started following her, and she ended up going the wrong way, not paying attention. So we had to backtrack to get back on the trail. And then the next little creek crossing, I stopped, splashed myself again. She kept going. And then when I stepped out of the creek, there was a worn trail to the left and no indication to go to the right. So I started going up to the left-hand side, and then I noticed there's no blaze, and I'm looking around on this worn trail. I'm looking at the trees and stuff, can't see no blaze, and I look down at my watch, and it's the wrong way. So then I go back to the creek, retracing my steps, and then my buddy came up behind me. I'm like, I don't know, the watch is saying go this way or go that way. Um, I don't know which way to go. And then we finally figured it out. There was like another tall grass section um, that you actually had to like run through to be on the trail. So it wasn't like clearly marked when you came out of this creek crossing, whatever it is, creek, spring, whatever you want to call them. I ran with him for about a mile. We were talking, almost missed a few turns, had to jump over some trees. And then when he took off, um, like maybe a tenth or so afterwards, there was like this waterfall section where the my one buddy who's a photographer was actually taking pictures. I didn't notice him right away because he was downstream, we'll say like 50 feet. So I'm splashing myself because I came right down to the edge from where I saw the last blaze. Then I look up, I'm like, all right, where the hell do I go from here? Because there was no indication to go straight or anything like that. And he's like, hey, down here. Um, so you actually had to go downstream, um, like 30, 50 feet to actually be on the trail. And if you look at his pictures, you can actually tell what I'm talking about is he got people when they first were starting to cross um, the springs, whatever waterfall section, but down where he was actually taking the pictures at is where you actually needed to be. Um, so like right there, there's really not enough blaze to let you know what's going on. So I get back on there, ran another mile or so till we hit the what is it, the Milton Church aid station, mile 28. Um, my stomach was really starting to turn by then. Um, I took a cup or two of Coke there, and then immediately I had to go over to the bushes, and it was like dry heaving it up. But I think that's actually what I needed at the time because that Coke usually makes me burp. Um, some of the acid and stuff built up in my stomach, and I think that's what it was doing. It was just dry heaving since it was so um, empty at the time. I didn't really have anything to throw up, but it made me feel a lot better after that. Did drink some and again tried to eat some watermelon and stuff there, and I just kept going. Um, I was still, I believe, there. I was, let me see. Yeah, I was still like fourth overall male, s- seventh person through because there was three relays ahead of me at that point. Um, yeah, yeah, all right, yeah. So that's what it was. I was seventh through, fourth male with three relays ahead of me at that point. So I was still doing pretty good. 28 miles in, 28.3 according um to the course miles. Then right after that, it hit me. It's like, oh man, you got to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, ah, should I go back like three or four tenths and use it, or just go off into the woods? Because I had wet wipes. I was like, I'm just gonna go off into the woods. Well, here I just happened to look over to the right, and there was like some campground or something that had like a porta john, um, like to the entrance of it. So I went and used that. And I know when I was in there, I had a couple people pass me, and I think I was first female. Um, when she passed me, was there. Um, yeah. Yeah, so I would have been fifth solo person, and I think there was like two or three people that passed me when I was in the bathroom. Um, Two were relays, and there was like first female. So there might have been five relay, um, and like five solo runners, but I was like fourth male still, um, or whatever. Yeah, either way, I was still fourth male, um, when I came into aid station 6, Dayton Smithburg Road. But that aid station 5, like at Milton Church, we ran on the road for maybe a half mile before we hit some more trail section. Um, this was more runnable trail, like back roads, or you're like four-wheeler type trails, through farmers fields as well. No real gravel road per se or pavement after we jumped off that first half mile. And I was really getting pissed off in this section because it was a little bit muddy and you could tell like people were driving vehicles through. And this was through like people's property. So it was getting used pretty well. And I know there was one specific time where you're running on this trail, whatever, and it looks like it's going straight ahead and up. There's a yellow blaze right there where it starts to go up. So I start going up it, and I'm like, all right, where's the next blaze at? And here, you're supposed to stay low along the Mahoning Creek or whatever river and take that. But there was no indication that you're supposed to. There was no double blaze there, um, indicating to stay low because it literally looked like you're going straight and up that little bank. That just pissed me off again. It did go into a little bit of a single track in that section at some point. Um, Runnable, till you ran into a tree. Um, you had to jump over and stuff like that. I was just getting aggravated at that point, from the trees being down on the course. Not used to, again, having all those trees along the course. Um, Whatever, just pissed me off. Um, I get to the Dayton Smicksburg Road. I'm still fourth male overall. They said I was fifth through. I believe Justina was I don't know if she won. I believe she won the race, first female overall. So she was the female ahead of me, and it was Jason, Lucas, and I forget the other guy that were ahead of me at that point. Um, so I was still, decent, but my feet were getting a little bit hotter. My left was starting to go a little bit in between the balls of my feet. Um, and now the heel of my right foot was starting to hurt a little bit more. And I told them, like I told every other aid station after 6, it's like, as soon as somebody passes me, I'm going to drop back and hang back and take it easy the rest of the day. But until then, I have to push a little bit, and hopefully somebody passes me soon. And told them I wasn't eating yet and I was getting hot. And that's when I actually took 2 gels with me and a piece of watermelon. I did get those gels down in between the two aid stations. um, but from there, that Dayton Smithsburg Road, it was more, um, gravel road, asphalt road the rest of the day. So I was going to be exposed. Again, this is where that 17, 18 miles the rest of the day started. um, there was, I guess, was there a couple? There was a couple little sections. Um, you did jump through like properties. There was like an Amish farm. We ran down their driveway. Then we ran like through some of the woods to connect to another farm property. But it was mainly road and gravel road the rest of the way. And this is where I really started to get pissed. Maybe because I wasn't eating enough and getting cranky. I didn't feel like I was cranky from not eating because I didn't have that hungry feeling in my stomach. Um, but I know my feet were hurting by this point, and I'm trying to do as best I can to jog because I wasn't really running at that point, but I was more like jogging at a pretty decent pace, like under 10 still, um, and power walking the hills just to save my legs. Um, but the rest of the way, there was just so much traffic on these back roads. Um, and I was really starting to get frustrated with the dust clouds, and almost getting hit by vehicles constantly, um, people not paying attention and just not having room for us to run along the road while vehicles are coming, especially both ways. Um, so I was getting aggravated about that. Um, Now, aid station 7, 37.4 in, that's like Wilson Road aid station. Um, I was saw my buddy Greg there. Talked to him for a couple minutes, told him I wasn't eating. He's used to me um, complaining a little bit. And I was like, yeah, I should just drop because I really don't want to run anymore. But I don't even know at that point. I probably had 8.5, or I think it was like 8 hours, 8:45, somewhere in there. I know it was under 9 hours, but it was between 8 and 8:45 left before the race ended to do 13 miles. And I was just like, yeah, I know I could walk 13 miles in 8+ hours, so it's kind of hard to quit. But at the same time, I really didn't want to run anymore. And I could have there backtrack about a half mile, and it would have been maybe a mile total to actually just quit and get to my vehicle because the farm was only really a mile away at that point. You just have to go out and they divert you out and around to swing back to the farm um, to get the miles because you do jump off the actual Baker Trail um, to get your added mileage for the race um, and so forth. Anyway, so I just kept going. I even told some of the people that were crewing their family and pacing all day. They just kept seeing me all day long. I was like, yeah, as soon as I get past, I'm going to drop back and take it easy. But still wasn't getting passed by another solo male by that point. I did get passed by a couple relayers at that point. Um, I know it was a nice mix of male and female, like relayers. We just kept going. Let me see. Yeah, I know that a couple of these back roads, I almost got hit by a couple business vehicles. Because you could tell they were business vehicles because they had their names on the side of the trucks. They're doing like 50, 60 miles an hour down these gravel roads, not paying attention. I almost got hit a few times, breathing all that dust that they were kicking up at me. Um, so I did that. And then we popped out in Plumville area around mile 41 range. And that whole mile and a half that we ran alongside the road in Plumville to the aid station was completely unsafe. Um, like every vehicle that drove by me almost hit me. They were all flying 50 plus miles an hour. You really only had a foot on the brim to walk or slash run on because there was a bank there. Like because you'd have that like a little foot gravel part to run on. There's a bank right on the side of that, so you couldn't run on the bank. And then there's the road, and these vehicles are just flying right past you. And I was just getting pissed off at that. I was like, this is just unsafe. Um, you shouldn't have people be doing that, or at least slowing traffic down, putting up flares or something so people know to slow down, or some cones. Um, so it gives runners some space and not just getting their elbows and body almost taken off shoulders by people not paying attention. Um, there was a little bit of sidewalk right before we get to the aid station. Um, they did have some arrows on the road. I tried to stay on the sidewalk and then it flips to the other side. So I jumped to the other side of the road. And then a woman with a big ass German Shepherd started barking and coming at me. So to jump back on the actual road and almost get hit a couple of times because now, since I had to cross the road, vehicles are coming at me from behind. Um, and until I got to the aid station, which was 42.2, um, there, I came in there and they weren't really like too helpful right away there. Um, I was getting my own drinks and stuff like that. And then the guy asked me if I was doing all right. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just hoping somebody passes me and so I can quit and take it easy. I was just pissing around for a few minutes, told him I wasn't eating again like I did everybody else. Then I finally did see a couple people come in relayers. I think another female solo came in while I was there, and then finally saw another male solo come in. So that put me in fifth male overall at that point. I'm like, oh, thank God. Now I could just relax, take it easy, and walk it in the rest of the way. So laid down, took a 15-minute nap there, I think, 10-15 minute range, um, just to get my legs, refreshed a little bit, even though my legs were fine all race. Um, just trying to relieve some pressure on my feet because they were definitely really hurting at that point. Um, got some drinks, um, ate two rice cakes there before taking off. And I'm like, man, I should really just quit. I really don't want to run 8 miles, but I still had six plus, 6.5, I think, um, easily to make it to the finish line. I'm like, well, only got less than 8 miles to go. It was 6 hours. I was like, shit. Again, you could still walk it and be fine and still finish the race easily. Um, so I just started walking. Once in a while, I would jog a little bit, but it started out uphill, so I wasn't really trying to push. I had a nice steady flow of people right then past me, probably 5 to 7 people in that first mile past me. I also called my buddy on the phone just to bitch for a couple minutes, how I felt at the time. It made me feel a little bit better. I just kept powering through. I just knew what I needed to do. But it was running solo. Um, not much to talk of, but this was all road and gravel road from there on out. Point was just to get to the finish line at that point. Um, mm, did see a couple families. I will say that there was a couple families out cheering us throughout the day, which is nice. I tried to wave to everybody that was paying attention. A lot of Amish kids um, and adults, I was waving to them. uh, but it was getting very hot. I could just tell the temperatures were rising. My body was feeling overheated. Um, I was starting to get a little bit rough, but not pass out rough or sick rough per se. Um, just, I guess, more or less wanting to be done and frustrated with how my feet felt and then all the vehicles that almost hit me. It was just getting aggravated more than anything at that point. Did make it to aid station 9, which was only like 3 miles to go in the race, less than, uh, I guess 3.5. We'll call it 3.5 to go. Um, Sat down for a couple minutes there, splashed myself with some water because they had a sponge because there was no more water on the course to dip myself in on. So I just got their sponge. I think I had a piece of orange there, but I really didn't eat food there. And then I just started walking again, slash jogging to the finish line. And then I got a little motivated with a couple miles left. I think like 2.8 left is what my watch said to go. Um, all of a sudden, I just got a spring in my step and I started running a lot harder. I was dropping like eights, I think, that last couple miles into the finish line. I'm like, well, where did this come from? But that last mile and a half, we were on like a gravel road. Uh, Well, like 1.8 to go, like, because the last 3/10 were pavement slash farm, but there was like a mile and a half section or two, maybe close to 2 miles. It was gravel road and vehicles were just flying, kicking up gravel. Almost got hit a few times because the dust clouds were so big. Um, a vehicle would pass me with the dust cloud, and then another vehicle would be coming the opposite way, not paying attention or being able to see me from the dust cloud. Um, and almost getting hit that way. But I did finish, just powered through, and like I said, 10 hours and 5 minute range. I don't know what the official time is because the results aren't up yet. Um, and I don't think they were ready available, or I didn't really care at the finish um, where my placement because I wasn't in top four male. Um, so I just really didn't care at that point. I stayed at the farm for maybe an hour. I did get changed right away. Got my compression sleeves or my calf sleeves off actually pretty easily, and I was kind of shocked maybe because I lost a bunch of water weight in my legs all day. But I went and sat in the barn for a good half an hour, just like with a death gaze. A couple people asked me if I was doing all right. I was like, I don't know yet. Um, I was just trying to calm my body down, um, and re-regulate itself. It just didn't seem like it was working. Finally, I got a fitaid in me, probably 40 minutes after finishing. Then I pooped, went back to the barn, sat there for a couple more minutes. Um, I just really didn't want to talk to anybody either. Even though I knew a bunch of people, I just didn't want to join in the conversation, and I just stood there trying to let my body correct itself. Um, then I finally just said to hell with it. Went to my vehicle, slept for 15 minutes, I think it's or 16 minutes, I think it ended up being. Set my alarm for that before heading home. Um, didn't eat any of the finish line food. There was a ton of food there, tacos, pulled pork, chicken, or whatever, coleslaw, tons of chips, cookies, all that good stuff. It all looked normally, I would say it all looked good, and I would have a smorgasbord there, buffet it all out, but just nothing looked appealing to me that day. Like I said, is I couldn't nothing all day looked appealing, and my body was just like it doesn't want food. So I just turned away from food all day. But I did bring chocolate milk and a bag of Ruffles, sour cream, and cheddar chips. As I left, I did drink the chocolate milk, but only had a couple of the bags of chips from the bag. So I didn't really eat. Um, but yeah. Even when I got home, I ate maybe a half a great value pizza, which I normally eat a full one. Ended up waking up at 4 in the morning and being starving. My body finally started to correct itself. Um, but the race itself, I am going to be a little bit critical now. I know I had a bad race. Well, my legs felt good all race. It was more or less my feet that sunk me from those shoes. Those shoes, the cushioning in those shoes is not conducive for long runs. I would say maybe a half mile, or I mean a half marathon, then like maybe 15, 16 miles at the most in those uh, insoles. So I have to switch them out because I still want to use the shoes because I did have good traction all day from going from road to trail to dirt to gravel. They did work perfectly for that, but otherwise, to save my feet, I can't use them again for a longer race than like 13, 15 mile range. Because I had 5 or 6 blisters on my feet, which I never get blisters in my Peregrines or my Endorphin Pros, like or my even normal trainers. So it's definitely a shoe issue and not the terrain or not my feet getting wet. It was definitely from these shoes. Um, but to be critical about this race, honestly, did not like the course itself. Um, it wasn't a road race. It wasn't a trail race. It was like a hybrid. Um, It was more of a road hybrid than anything, and I just felt unsafe most of the day. Um, I felt safe in the trail part, even though I got aggravated with the trees being down, and I felt like it was not taken care of the way it should have been, and what I'm used to from like other trail races, in PA or anywhere else. Like even a Spartan race, they go and cut the trees up. Um, it just wasn't taken care of, and you had a hard time figuring out where to go all race. So I was very aggravated with that. Um, but the car thing, what really did piss me off is I have never been almost hit by as many vehicles as I had during this race. And I run on the road all the time and all the races combined. I've never been almost hit total as much as I did with this singular race itself. People were just flying on these dirt roads and even on the asphalt part, not paying attention. and just like I said, kicking up the dust clouds on you. And there's people all day long, like crewing and volunteering and stuff like that on these back roads. Like I would see them, a dozen times throughout the day, just passing us, um, kicking up the dust as well. Like I understand that that's what they're there for. They're there to crew or pace or volunteer, which I'm fine with that. But it was just like constant all day long from people like normal traffic and such, just flying past you, kicking up dust, and just like locals just not paying attention in general, which I just felt unsafe. Again, almost got hit tons of times. I would say 70 to 100 times during the race, I almost got hit. And I'm not exaggerating and I'm not being over dramatic about that, because I do run with traffic coming towards me is the way you're supposed to, and just people not paying attention. I don't know what would have happened if I had the back to me, um, but I do feel the central section, because I can't speak for the north or south, it's only a matter of time before somebody actually does get hit in the central section because it is unsafe, especially in Plumville, um, when you don't have room, at least on some of the gravel backcountry roads. I guess you could jump out of the way, but by the time you actually react, it's probably still too late. But definitely in the Plumville area, it's just too close for comfort. Um, and I've had coal trucks fly by me 60 plus miles an hour, um, when I'm running in like towards Seward, and I felt a lot safer with them flying past me than I did with these vehicles. They were literally an inch away from my arm or shoulders. I'm running, or my legs, whatever you want to say. Um, and then I just felt like the course itself is not marked well. The Baker Trail, the ending part, um, where they actually like divert you off the trail and you run the rest of the way, that's actually marked a hell of a lot better, um, because they're actually putting the yellow arrows and stuff like that where to go. That's actually marked a lot better than the trail itself. Um, because you can go long stretches, like a tenth or so, without seeing a yellow blaze, whether they're missing, hidden by branches, or just not there. Um, it's just hard to know and be reassured of where to go. And if you don't have a GPX file, you're definitely going to be lost. And even with a map, I don't know how some of those areas you're actually going to be able to navigate with just a map, um, like an old paper map. On the roads, you'd be fine. But once you go around like the farmers' properties and stuff like that, there's no way without like an actual GPX file, um, to actually get around some of these areas, because you could be going one way and realize you're supposed to go another. I did it. I talked to most people, at least 20 other people throughout the day, and they all got lost multiple times. I think when I was in the barn, I heard somebody say like first female said she got lost 3 or 4 times during the day or went off course. So like right there, it's just like us with the experience, we were still getting lost, and going the wrong way because there wasn't enough markings, and the markings that you did have didn't really indicate going left, right, center, and so forth. So with that being said, is I never will come back to the central section of the Baker Trail Challenge. I wanted to get my rolling pin, and this just section left such a bad taste in my mouth, being unsafe and untaken care of in general around like the farmers' fields and just the course markings, that if I'm even allowed back after criticizing, um, I don't know if I'm going to go for the north or south anymore. But we'll see how I feel after a couple of days. But I know I'm complaining and I know I'm bitching, but it's rightfully so, and I'm not the only one that was bitching. And I was talking to a couple of people as we were running in those last couple miles. We'll say from aid station 8 on, and we're on those gravel roads. Like a car would, if I was actually by somebody or somebody's passing me in those sections, they'd be like, "Oh, how's the traffic been, or how's those dust clouds?" And they complained as well, um, that they were tired of it. It was aggravating, and a couple of them mentioned about almost getting hit a few times. Um, so it's not just me. I'm just the one that's outspoken about it. Um, and now I understand why nobody's gone for the FKT, the Baker Trail, because it sucks, especially the central section. Like, again, north and south might be better, but central is horrible. I guess I'm going to leave it at that. But I will say the volunteers all day long were good. Um, they actually cared about you. Um, I have no real complaints about the volunteers or the food that was offered, or the start line, or the finish line, or anything like that. I'm grateful for that farm that lets us be there. It's just the course itself to me sucks. Um, and yeah, but I do think the volunteers did a good job. I saw a lot of um experienced trail runners throughout the day at the aid stations. They were all wearing like their hats and t-shirts from different trail races, or had their mugs. So you could tell that they were all experienced and they knew what to do, um, and how to handle things. And they were generally concerned or asked questions that you would expect from experienced people. So the people who were there looking out for you, um, were top notch. And I'm thankful for them and all the time that they put in, to be there all day or even before or after. But just, I don't know. I just didn't like the course, and I just felt unsafe all day long with the traffic. But that's my honest Baker Trail Ultra race recap. Um, this is the medal that they give, and this is our bib. Oh, our bib actually has our name on it, where we're from. I was 125. I don't have the key fob that they scanned, but whatever. Um, I mean, even though I was undertrained, maybe a little underprepared logistically and what to expect going in, I still did well. If my feet were good, I definitely would have hit my 8:15 pace. I don't have any doubt about that. Um, maybe if I ate a little bit more, I would have been able to as well. I just think those are the two things that did really stop me from really succeeding on the day. Um, but I would say more so the shoes giving me blisters on my feet than not eating all day. So, or the course itself. Um, I think it had around 6,000 feet of gain. Website says 7,100. A lot of the GPX files that I found were 45. So there's nothing really too solid what the elevation profile is. Um, but I got six, so I'm gonna around six, so I'm just gonna go with that. Um, and it's not overly technical, but it's just a lot of rolling hills. I think one or two of them was like 400 feet, like 1.3 miles. So it's not steep. Um, but I don't know. Other than that, whatever. Um, I know it's a long recap, but I wanted to get everything out there, whether how my race went and my complaints, and to say thank you to the volunteers and stuff like that again.